The wind cut across the open holding pens like a blade, carrying the sharp smell of wet earth and old hay. No one spoke at first. 3 horses stood, or rather, survived, inside the rusted metal enclosure, their bodies telling a story no one wanted to read out loud. One lay in the mud, sides barely rising. Another stood with its head low, skin stretched tight over bone. The third, a dark-coated mare, watched everything with wild, defiant eyes, even as hunger hollowed her frame. People said later that the rancher paused before stepping forward. That he studied them in silence. But in that moment, it felt like time itself had slowed, as if the horses, and everyone watching, were waiting for something dangerous to happen. The dark mare stamped once, weak but warning. Her ears pinned back. She had learned the hard way that humans usually brought pain, not relief. And then the rancher spoke. "I choose all of them." Those 5 words landed heavier than the wind. Someone behind him sucked in a breath. Another shook their head slowly, like they were watching a man make a terrible mistake. 3 horses. Starving. Injured. One barely standing. Everyone knew the unspoken rule, save the one with the best chance. Not all 3. Never all 3. But the rancher didn't look away. His name was Eli Carter, and choosing the hardest path had become something of a habit in his life, though no one here knew that yet. The caretaker of the holding facility, a woman named Marianne, folded her arms tightly against the cold. She had seen rescues before. She had seen hope fail. "They're in bad shape," she said carefully. "Especially the mare. She's feral. Won't let anyone near her." The mare lifted her head at the sound of Marianne's voice, nostrils flaring. Mud clung to her legs like shackles. Her ribs showed clearly beneath her coat, and along her back, patches of hair were missing where infection had taken hold. She should have been powerful. Instead, she looked like a shadow of what a horse was meant to be. Eli nodded once. "I know." The horse lying in the mud groaned softly, a sound so low it barely registered. That was the moment something in Eli's chest tightened. He had heard that sound before, not from a horse, but from a place in his memory he rarely allowed himself to revisit. Years ago, he had stood in a hospital hallway making a choice no one should ever have to make. Back then, he had chosen wrong. Or at least, that's how it felt afterward. The regret had followed him like a second shadow ever since. He wasn't going to repeat that mistake here. The observer standing near the fence, a young volunteer named Lucas, shifted his weight nervously. He had been helping at the facility for only a few months, but he already knew how these stories usually ended. "Sir," he said quietly, "even one would be a lot. Feed, vet care, recovery. 3 could break you." Eli finally turned and looked at him. His eyes were calm, but there was something unmovable behind them. "Leaving 1 would break me more." The wind rattled the fencing. The mare snorted, as if she understood she was being discussed, judged, weighed like an object. She took 1 unsteady step back, muscles tensing, ready to flee even though there was nowhere to go. Eli moved slowly, deliberately, keeping his hands visible. He didn't step into the pen. Not yet. He knew better. Wild horses didn't respond to force. They responded to patience, or not at all. "Hey, girl," he murmured, his voice low and steady. Not soft in a way that begged, but firm in a way that promised safety if she chose to believe it. Her eyes locked onto his. For a split second, something flashed there, fear, yes, but also fury. This was a horse that had fought to survive. Chains. Hunger. Being chased. Being cornered. She wasn't about to surrender easily. Behind them, Marian whispered to Lucas, "She hasn't let anyone within 6 feet since she arrived." Eli stopped exactly 6 feet away. That alone made Lucas raise his eyebrows. The mare froze. Her ears flicked forward, then back again. She pawed the ground, testing him, daring him to come closer. Eli didn't. He just stood there, breathing, letting the moment stretch. This wasn't about control. It was about choice. The second horse, the one still standing but barely, leaned slightly toward Eli, as if curiosity had overcome fear. Its coat was dull, its eyes tired, but there was something gentler there. A horse that remembered kindness, even if it had been a long time ago. And the third, the one in the mud, shifted weakly, trying to lift its head. Eli noticed everything. He always did. Animals had taught him how to read silence better than people ever had. "I don't need them to trust me today," he said, more to himself than anyone else. "I just need them to live through it." Marianne exhaled slowly. "If you take them, there's no turning back." Eli gave a faint smile. "I already turned back once in my life. Not doing it again." The decision set things in motion immediately. Paperwork. Calls to a vet. Arrangements for transport that no one was sure would even work, especially with the feral mare. The sky darkened further, clouds pressing low like a warning. As the gate creaked open, the mare exploded into motion, spinning, kicking up mud, eyes wild. Lucas flinched. Someone cursed under their breath. Eli didn't move. He stood there, steady as a fence post, letting her burn off the panic, letting her realize no one was chasing her. When she finally stopped, chest heaving, she stared at him again. "You don't have to fight me," Eli said quietly. "You've already won." The words weren't magic. But they were real. And sometimes, real was enough to crack the smallest opening in fear. The mare didn't step forward. But she didn't run either. And in that fragile, muddy pen, with 3 starving horses and 1 impossible promise, something rare began to form. Not trust yet. But the beginning of it. If you're feeling your chest tighten right now, stay with this story. Because what happens next, what these horses survive, and what they give back, will change everything you think you know about rescue, choice, and second chances. The first rule of rescue is this: the moment you commit, the clock starts ticking. By the time the transport trailer arrived, the sky had darkened to a bruised slate gray. Rain threatened, hanging heavy in the air, and the temperature had dropped just enough to make every breath visible. 4 horses already running on empty, cold was another enemy. Marianne stood near the gate, phone pressed to her ear, coordinating with the veterinarian who would meet them at Eli's ranch. Her voice was calm, but her eyes kept drifting back to the pen, especially to the mare. The wild one. She stood apart now, angled toward the far fence, muscles coiled tight beneath her scarred coat. Every instinct in her body screamed danger. Trailers meant traps. Traps meant pain. She had learned that lesson early and often. Lucas leaned toward Eli. "She won't load," he said quietly. "Not without sedation. And even then, she could hurt herself." Eli nodded. He already knew. "Then we don't rush her." Lucas hesitated. "What if we don't have time?" Eli didn't answer right away. Instead, he watched the second horse, the gentler one, take a few uncertain steps toward the open gate. That horse was hungry, weak, but willing. A reminder that not every battle had to be fought at once. "We make time," Eli said finally. "Or we lose her." The horse lying in the mud let out another low sound, more breath than noise. That was the one worrying Marianne most. She crouched beside the fence, eyes scanning its sunken sides. "This one can't walk far," she said. "If it goes down again, it might not come back up." The words hung there, heavy and sharp. Eli closed his eyes for a brief second. Then he opened them, decision already made. "Load the gentle one first," he said. "Slow and easy. Give the mare space. And bring me a blanket." Lucas blinked. "A blanket?" Eli met his gaze. "Trust me." They moved carefully, like everyone was holding their breath. The gentle horse surprised them all by stepping forward almost willingly, hooves clanging softly against the trailer ramp. It paused, trembling, then continued. When it was safely inside, a small ripple of relief passed through the group. 1 life secured. 2 to go. The horse on the ground was next. It took 3 people, a sling, and more patience than Lucas had ever seen to get the weakened animal onto its feet. The horse swayed dangerously, legs shaking like they might fold at any second. "Easy, easy," Eli murmured, his hand steady against the horse's shoulder. He could feel every rib beneath his palm. The horse leaned into that touch, desperate, trusting in a way that hurt to witness. They moved inch by inch. The mare watched it all. Her ears flicked forward. Her head lifted higher than it had since Eli arrived. She wasn't panicking now. She was calculating. When the weakened horse reached the base of the ramp, its legs buckled. For one terrible second, it looked like everything would collapse. Lucas lunged forward instinctively, but Eli was already there, bracing, grounding, refusing to let go. "You're not done," Eli whispered fiercely. "You hear me? Not today." With a shuddering effort, the horse straightened just enough to be guided inside. The trailer door closed softly behind it. 2 lives. The mare was alone now. The pen felt suddenly bigger, emptier. The mare paced, hooves squelching in the mud, breath coming fast. She swung her head toward Eli, eyes white-rimmed, daring him to try. Marianne stepped closer. "Eli, we might have to sedate her. Light dose. It's risky, but—" "No," Eli said, not unkindly. "Not yet." He stepped into the pen. Lucas's heart jumped into his throat. "Sir." Eli raised one hand without looking back. He moved slowly, diagonally, not directly toward her. Every step was deliberate, measured. The mare snorted, backed away, then stopped. 6 feet. 5. 4. Her muscles quivered. One wrong move and she would bolt, slam into the fence, injure herself beyond saving. Eli stopped. He shrugged out of his jacket and held it low, letting it brush the mud. "You don't have to follow me," he said calmly. "I'll follow you." He took a step back. The mare froze. Another step back. She tilted her head slightly, confused. Humans didn't retreat. Humans advanced, cornered, forced. Eli turned sideways and walked, slowly, toward the open gate, never once looking directly at her. He trusted the space. Trusted her instincts. Behind him, no one breathed. The mare took one step forward. Then stopped. Another step. Mud sucked at her hooves, trying to hold her back like the past itself. She snorted, shook her head, fighting the urge to flee. Eli reached the gate and stopped. He waited. Seconds stretched. Then minutes. Finally, the mare walked. Not fast. Not confidently. But forward. Lucas felt his eyes sting. Marian pressed a hand to her mouth. When the mare reached the ramp, she balked again. Panic flared. Her head shot up, body tensing. Eli turned slightly, meeting her gaze for the first time since entering the pen. "I know," he said softly. "It's hard. But I'm not leaving you." Something in his voice broke through. The mare snorted once, sharp and defiant, and then stepped onto the ramp. The sound of her hooves echoed like thunder. When the trailer door finally closed, the silence that followed was overwhelming. 3 lives. Saved, for now. The drive to the ranch felt longer than it was. Rain began to fall, tapping against the windshield in a steady rhythm. Inside the trailer, the horses shifted, adjusting, breathing. Eli drove with both hands on the wheel, jaw tight. He wasn't celebrating yet. He knew better. Rescue didn't end at the gate. It began there. And waiting at the ranch were challenges that would test every promise he had made, to the horses and to himself. The ranch was quiet when they arrived, too quiet, like the land itself was holding its breath. Rain had turned the dirt road into a ribbon of mud, and the headlights cut through the darkness as Eli eased the truck to a stop near the quarantine barn. Warm light spilled from the open doorway, revealing clean straw, fresh water, and heat lamps already glowing. Everything was prepared. Everything except the uncertainty. Because saving a life doesn't mean it stays saved. Marian stepped down from her car and pulled her coat tighter. "That's 10 minutes out," she said. "We'll unload one at a time." Lucas hopped out next, his boots splashing. He felt different now, changed by what he'd witnessed. 3 horses that should have been statistics were standing because one man refused to choose. The first horse unloaded quietly, legs shaky but willing. It leaned into the straw as if the ground itself had finally become kind. The second, the one that had collapsed earlier, was guided into a stall and immediately lowered its head to the water, drinking slowly, desperately, like it was afraid it might disappear. Then there was the mare. The moment the trailer door creaked open, she exploded. She reared, slammed against the divider, eyes rolling white. Old terror flooded back, stronger than hunger, stronger than exhaustion. For her, this wasn't a rescue, it was another trap. Easy! Lucas shouted, instinctively stepping forward. Stop! Eli barked. Lucas froze. Eli moved instead, slow, grounded, voice cutting through the chaos like a rope thrown in a storm. Hey! Hey! You're safe. I swear it. The mare snorted, hooves striking metal with a hollow clang. Every movement screamed fight or die. The vet arrived just in time, rain slicking her hair as she jogged over. She's feral, she said quickly. Trauma response. If she goes down in the trailer, she could break something. Eli swallowed. He could feel his pulse in his throat. This was the moment rescue stories don't show. The moment where good intentions meet brutal reality. Light sedative, the vet said. Just enough to take the edge off. Eli nodded. Do it. The needle slid in. The mare fought, then slowly, so slowly, her movements softened. Her legs trembled, but she stayed upright. Eli stood close without touching. I've got you, he murmured, even though she couldn't understand the words. Maybe she understood the promise. They guided her into the stall. The moment her hooves hit the straw, she staggered, then steadied. Her breathing was still fast, but the panic was fading, replaced by something unfamiliar. Quiet. The barn smelled like clean hay and warm wood. No shouting. No chains. No pain. Still, the mare pressed herself against the far wall, eyes locked on the door. She wasn't grateful. She wasn't calm. She was waiting for the lie to reveal itself. The vet worked through the night. Severe malnutrition. Infected wounds. Old scars that told a story of ropes and beatings. She's been handled hard, the vet said softly, running a hand along a scarred shoulder. And not recently. This goes back years. Eli nodded, staring at the mare. He saw more than injuries. He saw memory. She'll fight you, the vet warned. Not because she's mean. Because survival taught her to. When the barn finally settled into silence, Lucas lingered near the mare's stall. She watched him warily, but didn't charge. She's beautiful, he said quietly. Eli smiled faintly. She doesn't know that yet. Later, when everyone else had gone, Eli returned alone. The rain had stopped. The night hummed with insects and distant frogs. He sat on an overturned bucket just outside the mare's stall. He didn't reach for her. He didn't speak. He just stayed. Minutes passed. Then longer. Finally, the mare shifted. One hoof slid forward. Her head lowered just slightly. Eli's chest tightened. This was the dangerous part. Hope. He knew how fragile it was. How easily it could be crushed. He had lost someone once by believing effort alone was enough. By believing love could fix what time had already broken. He wasn't going to make that mistake again. I'm not here to own you, he said quietly. I'm here to keep you alive. That's it. You decide the rest. The mare's ears flicked toward him. She took one step closer. Not much. Not enough for a touch. But enough to change everything. In the following days, the ranch settled into a careful rhythm. Small meals. Frequent checks. Slow healing. The two gentler horses responded quickly, gaining strength, eyes brightening with every sunrise. The mare did not. She refused halters. Refused hands. Refused to be rushed. And then, on the fourth night, she tested them. A storm rolled in without warning, thunder cracking overhead. The mare panicked, slamming into the stall wall, reopening a wound along her flank. Blood darkened her coat. Lucas ran for Eli, heart pounding. She's hurt herself. Eli sprinted to the barn, memories clawing at him. The last time he'd run like this, he'd been too late. The mare was spinning, eyes wild again, past roaring back full force. Eli stepped inside the stall. The vet shouted, don't. But he was already there. He planted his feet, lifted his hands, and did the one thing no one expected. He turned his back on her. He stood still. Vulnerable. The mare skidded to a halt inches behind him. The barn held its breath. Eli spoke, voice steady despite the fear screaming inside him. I trust you. Seconds passed. Then the mare lowered her head and breathed out, long and shaking. When Eli turned slowly, she was standing still, blood dripping but panic gone. The vet rushed in. The wound was treatable. No permanent damage. But something else had shifted. The mare had chosen not to strike. For the first time in her life, she had been trusted first. And that choice would echo through everything that followed. Morning came softly, like it was afraid to disturb what had survived the night. Sunlight filtered through the slats of the barn, cutting golden lines across the straw. The storm had passed, leaving the air clean and still. For the first time since arriving, the mare was standing calmly when Eli opened the barn doors. Her wounds were bandaged, her breathing steady. She didn't move toward him, but she didn't move away either. That small distance felt monumental. The vet returned mid-morning with lab results and a quieter tone than before. She leaned against the stall door, eyes never leaving the mare. "There's something you should know," she said. "About where she came from." Eli stiffened. He had suspected as much. Trauma like that didn't appear overnight. She was flagged in an old case, the vet continued. An illegal training operation. Horses were broken fast, brutally. The ones that resisted were starved. Beaten. Sold off when they stopped being useful. Lucas swallowed hard. She was used. The vet nodded. And discarded. The mare lifted her head at the sound of voices, ears flicking. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the weight behind them. Eli felt something twist painfully in his chest. How did she survive? The vet exhaled. Will. And luck. That hit harder than anything else. Later that day, Eli found himself sitting alone on the fence line, staring out at the rolling pasture beyond the barn. Green grass stretched in every direction, a promise he hadn't yet offered the mare. Not until she was stronger. Not until she chose it. Marianne arrived quietly, carrying a thermos. She sat beside him without speaking for a while. "You don't just rescue horses, do you?" she said eventually. Eli gave a dry smile. "No." She waited. "My wife," he said finally. "Cancer. Fast. By the time we caught it, there were only choices, none of them good." Marianne said nothing, letting the silence do its work. "I chose comfort over risk," Eli continued, voice low. "I told myself it was mercy. Maybe it was. But every day since, I've wondered if fighting harder would have mattered." He looked back toward the barn. "When I saw those horses, I saw her. Not weak. Just tired of being hurt." Marianne's eyes softened. "You can't rewrite the past." "No," Eli said. "But I can refuse to repeat it." That afternoon marked a turning point. For the first time, Eli brought a halter into the mare's stall, not to use it, but to set it down. He placed it near the water, then stepped back. No pressure. No demand. Lucas watched from outside, barely breathing. The mare eyed the halter like it was a snake. She circled it, nostrils flaring. Old lessons screamed danger. But nothing happened. No rope tightened. No hands grabbed. Eli returned later with a brush and did the same thing. Then a bucket. Then his jacket. Each time, the mare learned something new. Not everything placed near her was a threat. Days passed. The other two horses healed steadily. They gained weight. They followed Eli like shadows, nickering softly when he approached. The mare remained separate, but watchful. Then came the moment no one expected. Lucas was refilling water when he froze. "Eli," he whispered. Eli turned. The mare was standing at the stall door. Not pressed against the back wall. Not coiled to run. Waiting. Eli approached slowly, heart pounding louder than any storm. He stopped just short of reaching distance. The mare lowered her head. Not in submission, but in invitation. Eli's hand trembled as he lifted it. Every instinct told him not to rush this. He let his fingers hover, then lightly, barely, touched her neck. She didn't flinch. The contact lasted less than a second. But it shattered weeks of fear. Lucas wiped his eyes openly. "She chose you." Eli shook his head. "No. She chose herself." That evening, the mare took her first steps into the small recovery paddock. The grass was short and soft, the fence low and open. She hesitated, then lowered her head and took a tentative bite. It was the first time anyone had seen her graze. Eli leaned against the fence, breath catching. "You're safe," he whispered. "As long as you want to be." The mare lifted her head, grass dangling from her lips, and looked at him. For the first time, her eyes were not wild. They were curious. If this story has touched you, even a little, this is a good moment to pause and ask yourself how many second chances the world could hold if more people refused to walk away. Stories like this don't reach others unless they are shared, and every share helps another life be seen. But the journey wasn't over yet. Because trust, once given, asks something in return. The morning the mare crossed the full pasture, no one was watching at first. The sun had just crested the hills, spilling light across the fields in long, quiet waves. Dew clung to the grass, and the world felt suspended, like it was holding onto a breath it hadn't yet released. Eli stood at the fence with a mug of coffee gone cold in his hands, not thinking about rescue, or trauma, or promises. Just listening. Then he heard it. A soft, deliberate hoofstep behind him. He didn't turn right away. He had learned that some moments could shatter if you moved too fast. The mare stood a few feet away, fully outside the recovery paddock now, her body outlined by sunlight. She wasn't tense. She wasn't ready to bolt. She was simply there. The wounds along her back had begun to heal, hair growing in like stitches pulling skin back together. She looked taller somehow. Fuller. More real. Eli swallowed hard. "You did it," he said quietly. "You chose the big world." The mare flicked an ear, then took another step closer. This time, she didn't stop. She lowered her head and pressed her forehead gently into his chest. The contact was unforced. Unafraid. Eli's breath caught so sharply it hurt. He set the mug down before his hands could shake it to the ground and rested his palm against her neck. Warm. Solid. Alive. Lucas saw it from the barn and froze, afraid to break the spell. Marian stopped beside him, eyes shining. Neither of them spoke. Some rescues end with freedom. Others end with belonging. This one somehow became both. In the weeks that followed, the transformation was undeniable. The mare, now called Willow, a name she seemed to accept with quiet dignity, filled out. Her coat regained its shine. Her eyes softened. She still startled at sudden movements, still needed space on hard days, but she always came back. Choice after choice, she returned. The other two horses thrived as well. One found a forever home with a family who promised slow rides and endless carrots. The other stayed at Eli's ranch, becoming a steady companion who seemed to ground Willow on her restless days. And Eli? He changed too. One afternoon, Lucas found him standing in the field, watching Willow run, not in panic, but in joy. Her stride was powerful now, meneh flying, hooves drumming the earth like a heartbeat returned. "I used to think saving meant fixing," Eli said. "Turns out, it means listening." Lucas nodded. "She saved you too, didn't she?" Eli didn't answer right away. He watched Willow slow, then turn, then run back toward him, choosing him again. "Yes," he said finally. "She did." The ranch began hosting quiet visits. No crowds. No pressure. Just stories. People came who had lost something: confidence, trust, time. They watched Willow approach on her own terms, watched her stand close without being held. They left changed. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Eli sat on the fence where he'd once made the hardest choice of his life. Willow stood beside him, shoulder brushing his leg. "You know," he said softly, "I said I chose all of you." Willow flicked an ear. "But the truth is, you chose me back." She lowered her head, breathing warm against his hand. And in that simple exchange, choice for choice, the past finally loosened its grip. If this story moved you, consider passing it on. Every like, every share, every subscription helps stories like Willow's reach someone who needs hope more than they realize. Sometimes, the smallest action becomes someone else's turning point. Because rescue isn't about being a hero. It's about refusing to look away. And sometimes, when you choose all of them, life chooses you right back.